Hello and welcome to this World of Tanks tutorial. My name is Maxwell and today we're going to be taking a look at low to mid tier SPGs. Now, unlike with the scouting tutorial, there aren't really different techniques to cover when using SPGs. There are really just a set of guidelines that you need to follow and a set of points that you need to keep in mind. One thing I will say is that when using an SPG you have to be fairly good at multitasking, as there are 2 or 3 things that you need to keep in your mind at all times and be aware of. So having said that, we will jump straight into covering point number 1. The first point we're going to cover when playing as an SPG is positioning. Firstly, you want to choose a position which is going to offer you a good view of the overall battlefield. If it's a certain map like a city map or one with a giant mountain in the middle of it, then you want to choose a position which will offer you a good view of the most likely enemy advancing routes. Secondly, the position that you choose should offer you good camouflage and good stealth, so it should be behind a bush and well out of sight of any advancing enemy scout tanks that may uncover your position. And last but not least, the position that you choose should be difficult for the enemy to reach. In other words, it should be up a hill, behind a building, sort of hidden behind a rock, anything so that if an enemy does approach your position you are able to put a piece of terrain between yourself and them, which will obviously increase your lifespan dramatically. Having said that, don't choose a piece of terrain or building that is too large, as this will tend to block your line of sight onto the battlefield and therefore make you not very effective at all. The second point we're going to cover is going to be battlefield awareness, and this comes into 2 different varieties, which is awareness of the minimap, so that gives you a larger picture of what's going on, and an awareness of your immediate surroundings so that you know if you are under threat from an enemy tank. And being fully aware of both of these things is very difficult. Firstly, we'll cover minimap awareness. This is fairly simple. All you want to do is just remember at the beginning of a battle to set your minimap to a decent size, because you will be checking that constantly for enemy positions and enemy advancements. And all I mean by minimap awareness is basically you should be aware of areas of the map where you are able to reach either with your range or if there isn't a piece of terrain blocking you. And if you see an enemy tank advancing along a route where you do have a good firing solution, then you want to be aiming on that position and trying to take them out. Now, surrounding awareness is a little bit more difficult, but what you need to do is be aware of areas where an enemy scout could encroach on your position and would be able to spot you. So if maybe there isn't any camouflage on your left hand side, if an enemy tank starts to advance from the left hand side, you need to be aware of that and either move out of the way or try and get yourself into a better stealth position. Now, if your position does get compromised, there are 2 different techniques you can use to try and remain alive. The first one is basically just have faith in your camouflage abilities. So if you are well stealthed within a bush and you have a camouflage net equipped and maybe some camouflage skill from your crew, then you just want to sit still, don't turn, don't move, don't shoot, because shooting will almost certainly give away your position, and try and just wait it out. Hopefully your allies should be able to take them out. Unless you do have a clear shot on them, then you can try and take them out. Also, just be aware that low to medium tier SPGs generally cannot one-shot even light or medium tanks. The second technique is, as soon as you see somebody encroaching on your position, so basically just try and run the hell away. So you want to try and keep either a piece of terrain that you've placed there or your camouflage, so the bushes and the trees, and just try and relocate to a different position. And while you're relocating to a different position, hopefully your allies should be able to take out the tank which is encroaching on your position, and then hopefully you should be able to relocate and begin bombardment again. Having said all of this, sometimes the position that you have chosen lends itself to not being able to run away. So in that instance, what you want to do is get yourself into a position where you can fire on an enemy and then retreat while your gun reloads, because the SPGs have a very long reload time. So basically you want to just try and stay alive as long as possible and have as many shots as the enemy as they are approaching your position. Now I want to say a little bit about your scouts. A good technique to do if you can get into your firing position quickly is to find one of your allied scout tanks which are more than likely going to be rushing, and a good plan is to follow slightly ahead of them, so offering them covering fire and also finding out very specifically where the enemy's tank destroyers will be camped. So basically you want to just keep your cursor slightly ahead of them, and then if at all possible try and take out anybody who is a threat to them. And this is a very good technique to use on smaller maps and maps where there is a lot of camping involved. And finally, I want to talk a little bit about guessing and estimation. Both of these things are very important when using an SPG. And the reason for this is you have to be aware that when firing with an SPG, the shot that you fire takes an arcing route towards the enemy's position. So you can literally count the time that it takes for your shot to land. So being aware of this, you need to be very good at predicting where the enemy is going to be and not firing directly at where the enemy is now. And this can be quite difficult as a tank quite often changes its speed and direction quite often. And the other problem is if you don't have a spotting tank in the area, then they can disappear and you are basically trying to fire blind. Now firstly, we will talk about firing blind. The best case scenario you can hope for with this is when there is a stationary tank in a defensive position, and when they disappear you can almost guarantee that they are going to remain in the same position, so you are quite safe to fire blind on that position and you will more than likely be able to take them out. The second estimation technique is the moving tank. This can be a lot more difficult as at any point a tank can either stop, change its speed or change direction. All you can do is just be patient, watch them for a little bit and watch their maneuvering style. So if they do just head in one direction, maybe if they're in a reverse, then it should be relatively easy to estimate where they are going to be and have a shot. Obviously having a skilled crew here, so a crew at between 90 to 100%, especially for your gunner, will be very helpful here, as your shot will need to be very accurate, as you'll simply be estimating the enemy's position, so you will need the shot to land pretty much where your cursor points. Now the third and final estimation is going to be the moving and invisible tank. This is the hardest of all, but can be very rewarding when you do land that shot, and it is basically the same as trying to hit a moving tank. Just keep watching them for a little bit, get to know their movement style, and just have a look if there is any terrain nearby, like a bush or a rock that they may be trying to take refuge from one of your tanks. And if there is, you can almost guarantee that that is where they will be heading, so you want to just focus your cursor in on there and have a pot shot at that. Now if there isn't any terrain, then you just have to try and estimate where they are going to move to. Just try and put yourself into their position and think what you would do. If they're just slowly reversing and they disappear, then you can just try and move your cursor along with them, and then you should be able to keep a relatively accurate estimation of the speed that they are going. If they are maneuvering from side to side and changing direction, then it's almost impossible, and depending on your SPG's reload time, I would kind of say don't even bother having a shot in those circumstances. And that covers the basics of low to mid-tier SPG gameplay. If you enjoyed this tutorial and found it useful, don't forget to like or favourite this video, and for more World of Tanks tutorials, tips and guides in the future, you can go ahead and subscribe to this channel. Thank you very much for watching.